Thank you, President Lim. Thank you, Vinay. Today, I think we have a record number of guests, spouses, and the prospective members. We have more than 21. So I'm thankful to all of them who have accepted to come and join this. And I'll take the number not necessarily in any order. Yeah. We have Rotary Barney's Moon from Rotary Club Bugis. Yeah. We have Walter Yu, our moderator tonight. We have Tiffany, moderator's guest. We have Julia Ulsa, our prospective member. Jinuke Di Kumde, Vinesh Nitali, Mrs. Falguni Vinesh Nitali, Mrs. Prabhata Rao, Mrs. Kanak Subhash Pritani, my wife, yeah. Mrs. Mamta Mukundan, Charles Ho is our is going to be inducted tonight. Then we have CC Go, she's supposed to join us. She's today on Zoom. Then we have Teresa Lim, P.P. Palita's guest. Then we have Eric Lynch, our golfing expert and the future golfing organizer. He is with us. And then we have Moon Jun Dong. He's on the Zoom. Then we have Vimal Narayanan. He's one of the candidates who will be going to MCND meeting tomorrow. Then Prashant Kanodia, another outstanding candidate which is joining us tonight. So that's one more. Then we have Zahid Zek Alam, referred by PP J.K. Ong. He's also joining us in part of it. Then we have Jiao, there's another new member who's joined, new prospects who joined. She's a personality art specialist. So that's a new category we have to invent when she becomes a member here. Then we have Inga Polek, Dr. Inga Polek. She should be also joining us anytime. Then last one, Ivy Khan. I welcome all of them, and I must highlight that you all members and guests have full power to ask questions. You are equal to all of us to participate in this debate whenever required. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you to Sergeant at Arms, Vinit, and Director of Memberships, Subhash. It is indeed heartening to know we have so many members coming forward and joining us. And, it's so lovely to have all of us here physically. But, we must make sure that we don't get into trouble and that we, do your distancing, no mingling, and that was mentioned earlier. So as we go along, let's move now to the next segment. I would like to call upon IPP Dinesh, who will now raise a toast to visiting Rotarians as well as Rotary International.
Thank you, President. Fellow Rotarians and guests, it's my great pleasure and honor to raise the toast to Rotary International. We do not have any visiting Rotarian. Now, they're not allowed to have glasses. Probably you'll have to do with the bottle. Maybe members on Zoom may have glasses. So please charge your bottle or get your bottle and be upstanding. Let's raise the toast to our great institution, Rotary International. Rotary International.
Rotary International.
Thank you.
And now is the part where we have been waiting for this evening, and that would be the debate. The four-way test needs to be updated for the 21st century. Agree or disagree? So that is the motion for this evening. May I now call upon the moderator to say a few words, or do you want me to announce it? Okay. So what is the four-way test? First, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? So for Rotary and Rotarians, we are guided by the four-way test. And this is what we should do to guide ourselves on a daily basis. So who are the people who are in the debate? Proposition team, led by Rotarian Uttam Tripalani with PP Perita Hero, will be Rotarian Iman Jamal Adin and Rotarian Rabi Machiraju. So we have two very senior Rotarians and two junior Rotarians. And for the opposition, we have John Foster, PP Mark Wen, Deblina, and Robert. So they will be the opposition. So let's hear what they have to say as they debate these motions. And then at the end of the day, you'll be the judge. Thank you very much. And let's welcome the debaters.
Thank you, President. Good evening, everyone. While the group gets settled, I know there's a bit of commotion in the background, so hope you guys can hear me clearly. I'll be the moderator for tonight. My name is Walter, and maybe what I can do is our debaters are getting settled. Before we start the debate, allow me to briefly explain the format of this evening's debate. In short, there are two parts to this evening's debate. The formal debate that our debaters on stage will be participating in, and the floor debate. So for the floor, for this evening's debate, we have 8 debaters, as you can see on stage, and they'll be debating the motion, the four-way test needs to be updated for the 21st century. As earlier mentioned, the first team, which is the proposition team, will argue in favor of the motion, while the opposition team will argue against the motion. Each speaker tonight, with the exception of the last speaker, will have 6 minutes of speaking time, during which the speakers from the other team may offer questions or counter statements known as points of information, except during the first and the last minute. It is up to the speaker currently speaking to decide whether or not to accept those points of information. What I will do is I will ring the bell one time after the first minute, and at the 5th minute mark to basically signal when members of the other team can offer those points of information. So you hear a little bell like this. Oh, it's not loud enough. Okay, can you guys hear this? Okay, wonderful. At the 6th minute mark, I will ring the bell twice to signal that the time is up for that particular speech. The last speaker of both respective teams will have 3 minutes to wrap up the debate for his or her respective side. During the duration of the closing speech, no points of information may be offered. So in a sense, the last speaker, you are safe. No one will be able to interrupt you at all. So for the last speech, I will only ring the bell once at the 2nd minute mark, just to indicate you have 60 seconds left, and twice at the 3rd minute mark to indicate that you should conclude your speech. Please note that for the closing speech, opposition will go first, before the proposition, who will essentially close the debate for tonight. Thereafter, the formal debate will be considered closed, and we will proceed to the floor debate, which will last for 15 minutes. During this floor debate, it will be open to any Rotarian to air their views in support or against the motion, and we encourage each speaker to keep his or her speech to no more than 90 seconds. Similarly, I will ring the bell once when there is 30 seconds left, and I'll ring the bell twice when the time is up. As we want to give all members equal opportunity to voice their views, as the moderator, I will select a balance of people who are physically present, as well as those who are joining us online to participate in the floor debate. So there will be ample opportunity for everyone to participate, be it virtually or in person. So for those of us joining in virtually, you simply need to raise your hand on the Zoom function. Please ensure that your name is clearly displayed so that we know who to call on. If you are here in person, much simpler, just raise your hand and I'll do my best to describe whoever is going to speak. And if you are here in person, you can then come forward in front here where we have prepared a mic for you, and you basically have your 90 seconds from there on. All right. So as a gentle reminder, if you are joining us virtually, please remember to mute yourself for the duration of the debate. Formal debate, we will be conducting a vote from all our Rotarians, both those physically present as well as those joining us online. How we will do this is very simple. We'll be taking a vote on whether you are for or against, or maybe you have a neutral position at the start of the debate. So for those who are present, you will see a QR code on your table. You can scan that later on when we are taking the first vote. And for those of you at home, you can see on the PowerPoint screen the same QR code for you to scan. So the idea here is that the winning team will be the team that is able to convince the most number of people to switch sides from their original position. After all, the debate is meant to be persuasive, and so the difference will essentially determine the winner for tonight. As for the best speaker, we'll simply take a vote at the end of the formal debate as to who all of you thought was most deserving of this title. So please do remember our debaters for tonight and their names so that you can vote when the time comes. So again, the motion for tonight is the four-way test needs to be updated for the 21st century. We will now begin to take the first vote. All right. So if you can just scan the QR code, be it on the table or on the screen. Debaters, unfortunately, you guys cannot participate in this vote because you have a vested interest. Okay, so we'll begin by taking the first vote. You guys can go ahead to vote for, against, or neutral. Just give everyone some time. Is there anyone who still requires a little bit more time to vote? Okay, it looks like we're good. Anyone at home needs more time? Okay, well, looks like we've all decided where we stand on this issue very quickly. Okay, in that case, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for, let us invite the first speaker from the proposition to open the formal debate for us tonight. I invite Rotarian Udang to take the floor. Get here. On this side.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Few days ago, I saw a bench, newly painted, guarded by two soldiers. The bench, believe it or not, was painted 200 years ago, and the two guards were still there guarding the bench. blind, unthinking, and proud of a very regimental tradition. Little bit of inquiry showed that this 200-year-old tradition happened to be there because the general at that time had painted the bench fresh, and he was very upset that people kept sitting on it, so he put 2 guards there, and this tradition has just been going on and on without anybody thinking too much about it. Like that bench, the 4-way test is a relic. Rotarians almost worship the test and have blindly made it into a tradition. Somewhat like the 10 Commandments, if you like, not always observed in its entirety. It's a proposition point of view that the 4-way test needs updating, and that's what we are debating. In 1932, when it was created by Herbert Taylor, it may have had some validity. Those were the days when the US was going through hard economic times, when there was civil strife, whites dominated the blacks and other races, groups were dominating. Can I refuse that?
You can, it's up to
Thank
you.
Let me carry on, please. See, this happened when you interrupt. The concept arose out of a commercial necessity based on the fact that Herbert Taylor's company was going bankrupt. The Taylorism that was created turned out to be commercially useful and beneficial to his company. But how effective was it for individuals like Rotarians and others in a commercially dominated world, which raised issues that deviated from the truth through false advertising, half-truths, and other such twists and turns? The present 4-way test has not changed since 1932. That's 90 years. It's about time we had a closer look at the words and bring them in line with today's world, which is dominated by money men, computers, and IT. Personnel who sit in front of these boxes, stare at the screens, and often forget that there is a world full of people and humanity around them. In the 1930s, businesses and professional men cared about old-fashioned values and virtues. They had more time in their hands and perhaps cared about such concepts in daily practice and through common social and community foundation. Those days are gone. The 4-way test is a museum piece, a lovely testimony to the idealism of days gone by. Most people don't use it other than to decorate their offices with a 4-way test plaque. Physicians will tell you that if you don't use a part of the body, it becomes non-functional. It's the same way with the 4-way test. But before we go into more details, we must remember that whilst this is called a test, it is neither an oath nor a commitment. It is neither a dictum nor a statute, rightly so, because it is not enforceable. Perhaps one of the most damning things about the whole concept is that even Paul Harris, a few months before his death, was asked to comment on the essence of Rotary, and his response was toleration. Goodness gracious, are we required to be tolerant of the likes of half-truths, self-interest in goodwill, fairness, and friendships? Because let's face it, we are often forced to live in a world of compromise. This brings me around to the concept of will it be beneficial to all concerned? Unfortunately, we do not look at fellow beings in a fair and objective way. We tend to observe their faults, their hatreds, and injustice to themselves, and then being stirred to dislike and hate them. Does an individual contemplate happiness without feeling envy, without recognizing their good values, qualities, without desiring closer association with them? Can we look at the beauty of women without hankering after them? All such fundamental thoughts add to the concept that everything cannot be beneficial to all concerned. There will always be a need to differentiate benefits, and allocate our time and service suitably. A good example can be the excellent work we do to pack food and distribute them. Are we being fair to all concerned or beneficial to all when we just focus on a few who get the largest of our donations and help, leaving out many others in the same neighborhood? We do not use our actions to help the beneficiaries to grow or improve their skills or encourage them to. Have we made an effort to check how the neighbors feel about it? We often hear the expression, the more you put into Rotary, the more you get out of Rotary. Is that not being very selfish? It's being beneficial to you first and perhaps not to those who it is intended for. Are we deceiving ourselves? Reciting without thinking the four-way test, in particular, the concept of being beneficial to all concerned. All this is a recipe for self-indulgence, patting each other on the back for the brief moments of clearing our conscience. We developed the feel-good concept that we are really doing social work in the belief that this is good for my conscience rather than being of tremendous benefit to the recipient. I would therefore like to propose that the fourth tenet be changed to, can I, in the spirit of truth and fairness, be beneficial to the community? With this background, the proposition will call upon Rotarians and our team to speak on the other three out-of-date questions. Rotarians Perlita will speak on the truth factor, Iman will speak on is it fair, and Rotarian Ravi will speak on will it be goodwill and beneficial. In the meantime, I yield the floor to the opposition with their age-old support of a concept that we believe needs an update. Thank you.
Thank you, Rotarian Usam. Now, to open the case for the opposition, let us invite the first speaker from the opposition, Rotarian John.
Is this on? Maybe? There we are, the button says on, it's useful. So it's always difficult, but nice to follow such a great speaker as Rotarian Fulton. And a lot of the points that he made there, I wouldn't disagree with, and I don't think anybody from our team would. There are some things, though, that I'd like to address immediately. Rotarian Fulton said that he took umbrage with the word test. He said it's not a test. The way that we would like to define the word test is that it's an evaluation of self, and through that, the four-way test certainly is a test. One of the other points that Rotarian Fulton made, and he centered in on whether it was beneficial to all. And he talked about compromise, having to make compromise. What we'll argue today is that actually, in its togetherness, the four-way test provides us with an opportunity to reach compromise. Rotarian Fulton also pointed to the change 1932 to today. And he said that in 1932, it was a much more divided society. He pointed to civil strife and racial tension. But these are things that we see today. And if we look to the capital attacks in the US, if we look at recent incidents of racial disharmony in Singapore, we look, and I'm from the UK, so if we look to Brexit and the divisions that that's made, all that shows that actually it's never been more important to say that through better friendships, building goodwill, we can try and address these things. So today, the opposition in total will argue, firstly, that the principles of the four-way test are very relevant to the 21st century. In fact,
they've never been more relevant, and that they're in fact working well. We'll go on to look at the four-way test as a way to reach that compromise. We'll look at the historical success that the four-way test has given us. We will look at why tradition, culture, and values are important, and why indeed they are a draw for new members. And then we will conclude. So I want to talk a little bit more about why it is important in the 21st century. So for those of you that don't know me, my vocation is education. And in education, we very much focus on 21st century skills. Now, there are 7 skills that were identified by a fellowship of educators, academics, and also some prominent businesses. Microsoft and Apple signed up to that. And there are 7 things that we try and get across to our students, and we say are very, very important to society and the workplace. And I'm going to try and link those in to the 4 core tenets of the test. Excuse me. So we talked a little bit about better friendships, but 2 of the 21st century skills are cross-cultural understanding and communication. We've said that division in society has never been more prevalent, and that actually the 4-way test provides us an opportunity to try and heal those divides. Rotary previously talked about it being beneficial for all concerned. He said that it's not possible for something to be beneficial to all concerned. And what we would argue is that we know, but all we can do is use the 4-way test in order to try and get that. Additionally, so the Rotary Club internationally is a very well attended club, and we are looking to build upon that. However, if more people followed the 4-way test, if more of those neighbours looked at the 4-way test, then we would see that it is beneficial for all. We talked as well there about the divisions, and I want to point to truth as being really, really central to the test and central to society today. So those divisions come from untruths. In 2016, the word of the year, which was a phrase, was post-truth. We live in a post-truth world, and that's not a good thing. A post-truth world needs alternate facts. A post-truth world is, as Michael Gove, MP in the UK, said, a time where people are sick of experts. These are not good things. If we use the test, and we use that test in self-evaluation, we are pushing for the truth, then that makes an impact. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are saying that the 4-way test does not need updating. We will argue that we can interpret the 4-way test, and we will show you lots of different ways where that's been successful already. Rotarian Hutton has pointed to a few problems. And we don't look at the 4-way test as being sat there without problems. We recognize there are things that need addressing. However, that does not mean that we change something that is the core tenement of what we do. It is our principles, and it has provided a guide to us for so many years. Thank you.
You can make the point when the next speaker from the other team is speaking as a point of information, or when it's your turn to speak. Okay. All right. Thank you, Rotarian John. We now invite PP Talita to take the floor.
Is this better? Hey, good evening, fellow Rotarians and friends. I'm here now to probe deeper into the truth. What's the current scenario? We are surrounded by rumors, false statements, inflated financial statements, inflated forecasts. We're bombarded with messages only to find out later that are actually fake or old. Many scams are going on too. All these inaccuracies continue to hurt and complicate our lives. What is the truth? Is there such a thing as truth, which is absolute, complete, and never changing? What is the truth during our youth? As children, truth was easy. We just listened to our parents, grandparents, religious gurus, and so on. As we grow older as toddlers, we didn't even bother who our friends were, until of course a parent will tell you, hey, don't play with that poor kid or with that, some other races or cultures. Is this better? How about the teenagers of today? The social media has taken over their minds. They also listen more to their classmates rather than parents. They also listen to the enemies like cyber bullies, which comes up with suicide sometimes. We can see that even for children and adolescents, perceptions and definitions of truth evolve with the same individuals. What happens after we become adults? Do we carry on the truth from home to school to our professional life and social life? That's fine, mostly, but don't we veer away from the truth and come up with lies sometimes? Let's start with family nucleus. If a man is asked by his wife, do I look pretty in this outfit? Do you think the man will say no? Obviously not, because otherwise World War III will start. Just to keep peace and harmony, he would say, sorry. Of course, darling, you're good in any outfit. If a management consultant and your client asks, what kind of leadership style do you think do I have? Do you answer, no, you're controlling, and that's why there's a lot of employee turnover in the company? Of course not, otherwise you lose the job, right? How often have we bought shares, find out the forecast, and find out later that the forecast has been inflated? Those of you in the financial sector, what standard of truth do you provide to your clients when you try to present them alternatives on share picks? Don't you simply say, we shall not be responsible for whatever results there are at the end of the day? Let's visit marketing and advertising of consumer goods. Between TV commercials and Facebook, how many have made false claims, even botched treatments, and ineffective products? What about the absence of truth? Transparency is lack of truth and deceit. How about COVID vaccines? Are there enough information for the testing to result in definite results? We simply make our best judgments on these areas. So lies and half-truths, when repeated often enough, get taken as truth, especially when people of significance say them. How many people believe in Trump, in Putin, and even today? Albert Einstein said, blind respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth. So following instructions blindly without further review is definitely unacceptable. We see that as we become older and as we age and come up with different vocations, disparity in definition of truth grows wider. Chairman Utan talked about Paul Harris before dying, saying that it is tolerance which is the essence of growth. He didn't say the truth. How about the projects that we do across the globe? We're all here with 7 priority grants, priority areas for global grants. Do we know the basis of their selection? Are they backed with true information? Have we been informed by that information? Or do we simply trust the Rotary Foundation? We need to know the truth, particularly in mega projects. Let us visit the highest profile example, the End Polio Program, which we fully support in our district as well as our club, all the time. As of January 12, 2 weeks ago, the WHO reported 0 cases of polio in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Perhaps the RF should now look into the truth of the situation. Should we continue paying $100 million yearly for polio? Or should TRF gradually divert focus to another advocacy? The UN reports 9 million people dying every year out of hunger. Maybe we should shift focus on this. Rotary should do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we conclude that the truth is subjective. It evolves based on each person's perspective, our beliefs and values, relevance to the context and situation, and our own interpretation. So let us be the beacon of truth according to our conscience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PP Pelita. We now invite PP Mark to continue the case for the opposition.
Wow, the two most respected Rotarians in this club on my side do not like truth, do not like to be beneficial to everybody, doesn't like fellowship. They started with challenging tradition. I love tradition. When I stand in this room, when I look at the high ceilings, the chandeliers, the panel floors, this is tradition. In fact, for me personally, if it weren't for the Tangling Club, where our meeting were held when I joined, I would have joined Rotary Club of Pandan Valley, which is in the Grand Hyatt. So tradition is important. And also, point of information is the tradition of the debate, just for information. So I like to say that tradition is what makes Rotary unique and distinctive and cohesive. My points are tradition overrides changes. Four-way test is working well, both in basic values and in our ingrained mindset. There's no worthy challenger in sight or at all possible. Rotary Club. Rotary Club is full of symbolic traditions. The logo was the wheel, the bell to start the meeting, the tie, the pins, the name tags with the vocation listed, the banner exchange, the sunshine box to collect donations. Now I realize some of the newer members haven't seen that yet, but trust me, you're gonna love it. And then addressing the PDGs and honorary members, and calling the PPs and the PEs and the presidents and the PNs and the PNDs. Even our top leader is called RIP, not rest in peace, but Rotary International President. These are traditions. They all work. It's part of us. Out of that, the four-way test stands as the most iconic symbol, both within and outside Rotary. It's saying, yes.
Slavery also is a tradition. It's a great tradition of the South. Would you like traditions like that to continue unchanged? Because that's a tradition again. It's like the walls and the chairs and the floors of this club are also.
Well, luckily, the four-way test will address that by saying, is it beneficial to all concerned? And it's not.
We're talking about tradition.
Yes, we need a tradition of fixing wrongs to change wrongs like slavery. Let me move on. So out of all that, the four-way test stands as the most iconic symbol. It's seen in Singapore in the Botanical Garden. It's a plaque that says four-way test. If you travel around the world, you see it in centers of town squares, train stations, roundabouts, probably even on benches. It's in plaques. It's literally cast in stone for eternity. So I don't know how we're going to change that. It gives us all a warm and fuzzy feeling. Familiarity, comfortable, we feel at home, we feel solidarity, and we feel cohesion among ourselves. Secondly, it's also practical. It's not just an empty tradition. When opinions differ, many a time we bring this, applying the four-way test brings rationality, sensibility, perspective back into the discussion. I've seen that in our discussions. Our PP Stan, who is in the audience, always reminds us let's step back and look at the 4-way test. So we step back, we regroup, we find a common ground, we restart, we're not narrow-minded. Thirdly, it doesn't solve all the problems. Yes, it does not. It could not have foreseen all the problems in the world. But on the other hand, it can be surrounded with other tools, embellishments can be made. It has moved with the times. It's alive and growing. How is that? We have, in addition to the 4-way test, the motto, service above self. We have in our own club a guide to daily living proposed by, of course, our PDG, Gilbert, and adopted by our club and the district. It adds on to what to do. Every year we have a Rotary theme. We have a new theme like Light Up Rotary, serving humanity, be the inspiration. Rotary connects the world, open opportunities, and so on. All these are changes with the time and work very well. And this year is Imagine. So it's fully capable of extensions and it's adaptable. Lastly, it's there. It's already there in our minds and in the minds of 2 million members and in the public. Our deputy minister, who was a guest of honor at President Lewis, he mentioned that he was an interactor. That is in his mind. My own guest of honor, Minister Indrani Raju, was a Rotarian scholar, and she brought it up in my installation. New members join an institution, not a startup, not still trying to figure out its product, its mission statement, its logo, or its elevator speech. So we need the center of gravity. We need to revolve around the 4-way test. So in summary, tradition and heritage is the best quality of Rotary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PP Mark. We now invite Rotary Mani to take the floor.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible? So good evening, everyone, and I'm very Rotary. It's been just 3 months or 4 months that I'm here, and I'm privileged to meet everyone. I would like to take us back into the memory lane because the 4-way test is very, very, very old. And therefore, let's look back into the Rotary International Foundation. It was founded in 1905. In 1918, the women has gotten the right to vote in the UK. In 1920, women got the right votes in the US. Let's look into the 1943. The 4-way test was adopted. And it says fair to all concerns. 2 decades after the voting rights for women in the US and the UK, we don't have women, and we didn't have women when the inception of the 4-way test was agreed upon in 1943. Is it fair to all concerned? It's not, it hasn't been respected or approved from its day of conception, from its day of adoption. It hasn't been applicated. How would you get a 4-way test that from day one has not been respected? Half of the population has been declined. The women and half of the population have been declined to get to the club in 1943. You talk about fairness, it's unfair, 100%. Let's look fast forward. 1976, Dr. Cynthia Whitlock wanted to join Rotary Club, loved the Rotary Club, was inspired by the people in Rotary, and applied. Surprise, surprise, she got denied, declined. Her club in the world stage has become ex-Rotary Club, and they got a logo of an X on it, and they were proud of having that X in the logo. That's 1976. That's after 1920 of the voting rights. How did we get the voting rights and we still have a men's club in 1976? It took her 11 years, that's a generation of people. It took her 11 years, and her case became a civil rights case in the US in order for her to get accepted in Rotary. And that's not beneficial to all, fair to all concerned. It's not us who decided to vote her in. The Supreme Court pushed Rotary to vote her in. We needed the Supreme Court to open our eyes. Can I finish? After that, look into Singapore, 1999, until we get women in. You may think, okay, Iman, you are a radical feminist. We have progressed. Surprise, surprise, we have a president as a female coming in, right? 100 years later, hallelujah, what fair is this? Now, I'm talking from a woman rights because I'm a true feminist and I am proud of being feminist and looking into female advancements. But that's not the only thing. Let's look into the race gap. Okay, we are here and in apartheid, did we get Black Ontarians in South Africa? What was the sense of beneficial to all and fair to all concerned in South Africa during apartheid? Have we been fair to all or have we been non-committal to our stance when it comes to political issues, racial issues? Let's look into the Midwest and the Black Rotarians in the Midwest. They did not exist. We had white Rotarians who were having centuries of slaves, centuries of beneficial plantation, but we didn't have Black. And what Rotary did, they were again non-committal to the case. If we are fair to all, if we wanted the four-way test to be fair from its inception, we would have taken a stance. Pro or cons, it doesn't matter, but being fair to all concerns. But what we did is we wanted to be fair to the concerns within Rotary. When it's a men's club until 1986, it's within Rotary. When it's white only, it's within Rotary. If we say fair to all, then it's fair to all concerns outside of it. We want to think about other cases. Let's think about pay equity, whether you have race or you have gender or you have minority. Are we really truly fair to all concerns when it comes to pay equity? And we are all here, businessmen and businesswomen. We are talking about all this. People police have mentioned and polio. Is it really fair to us for $100 million spent on end polio? Should we look into starvation? Should we look into youth suicide? Should we look into mental health, which is a very much 21st COVID era issue? Should we just, I'm not saying remove the end polio, but I'm saying let's look into a more progressive, authentic way of doing things. Finally, if we go again to looking into women, gender, race, ask ourselves here, are we really fair to all concerns? Are we all following the four-way test? Is it really our value? Do we want to look into a more progressive way of doing things? And with this, I leave you with this question. Please ask yourselves, did we really get it right when we got the four-way test in 1943? And I ask the women here, are we really supporting the progression of four-way tests as true feminists and true women leaders here in this room? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rotarian Iman. We now invite Rotarian Delina to use the case for the opposition.
Hi. And thank you, the opposition, for your viewpoints, and I beg to differ respectfully. First and foremost, values and awareness of the values in the four-way test is not the sphere of men or women. Yes, and I guess everybody over here will obviously now come to the point that Uttam has made a point where we are living in a very smooth world. There is nothing to worry about anymore in the world. And yet Iman drives a point that the four-way test is not anymore applicable because now we are facing a world where there's a lot of gender divisions, there's a lot of fights. So given that perspective, I do want to drive the dichotomy of the four actions. I do want to drive the dichotomy of the four actions in the four-way test. And we do know that intentions of words versus meanings of words, actions versus speech. These seem to confuse us. And we need to understand that depending on the situation, the person, the ethical conundrum, our upbringing and our surroundings drive our decisions, driving positive outcomes. And these outcomes are good friendship, beneficial respect. So now we do think that we are all positive people, right? We are not negative oriented. So now we have also debated about one thing, and I think the opposition has constantly, can we really tell true things? Can we really be honest? So did you really realize that the strange thing about this word truth, it's a noun. If it's a feeling, feel it. Am I honest to you? Do I truly love you? Do I truly think good for you? It's a very warm feeling. But now, if you have to act upon a truth, as they say, truth hurts. Truth is difficult. It's very, very hard. It's laser focused. So there again, there's a dichotomy that needs to be always kept behind our minds when we are making decisions based on this test. Same hold true for the other words. Fair, trust, accountability, goodwill, fellowship. Who are we orienting these words towards? Ourselves, our small family, our group of friends, our community, our professional colleagues, our personal classmates. And why are we driving these for? For building human relationships based on trust, give and take, or for building relationships from which we can be profitable at others' expense. I mean, there's also that beneficial. So it's the intent which matters, where you do this four-way test. So now let's also turn to the non-utopian world, and it does exist, I do agree, not everything is this very light, happy world, right? The dark, the unfair competition, the war, the selfish intentions, driving down morale of everybody. So what's the cost of that? Has anybody thought about it? How long can one drive that? Really egoistic and want to say, oh yeah, I am the correct one, no matter what data or no matter what truth is being driven. So, end of the day, it is a test of your internal compass. It's a test of who you are. It's a test of are you fit to be a Rotarian. It's a test of the traditions and the heritage that Rotary has still date been driving towards. And there's a historical connotation for this forward text. And if senior Rotarians will know, but these forward tests was driven into UN Constitution in the US, into Ghana's judicial system in Africa, into Chernobyl's Russia's disaster, goodwill. Now, if are still driving it to make it an UNESCO World Heritage Peace Site, to Australia's Peace Corps recognitions. So there is a lot of history to this forward test, which drives goodwill, which drives prosperity, peace, profitability, and sustainability. So now, if it should be changed, is the motion today in the House. So I would say that, well, if every gender for almost 100 years, races, colors, creeds from 200 nations, from over 2 million Rotarians have believed on it, acted upon it, and took it as a test in every sphere of their lives, their internal compass. And it's still instilled as pledged in many, many Rotary clubs till date. I say modify it, reorient it for a better purpose, but completely change it, I say nada.
Thank you, Rotarian Davina. To close the case for the opposition, we invite Rotarian Robert to take the floor. So for the last speaker, the opposition goes first. Okay, it seems we changed the format a little bit. Okay, I apologize. In that case, Rotarian Ravi will take the floor first.
Only 6 minutes. Right, no. It incredibly subjective.
Okay, well, hi, can you hear me? I'm Rob. I'm a newbie. I'm even newer than the pro speaker. I'm just 1 month on board, so please forgive me. Thank you very much, President Lewis, PPs, PDGs, and fellow Rotarians for this opportunity to speak to you today. I'm a guy who's based in Singapore for a short time. I'm a semiconductor professional. So this is a kind of a deviation, but in semiconductors, we basically focus on the facts. And that's going to be the basis of my speech tonight. You can't interrupt the person. What I'm going to focus on is some fundamentals, some philosophical fundamentals first, and then I'm going to use a number of examples that are in existence around the world in terms of judicial systems and actually constitutions to back up the case against the proposition. And finally, I'm going to round up with a very famous movie, which everybody I think is aware of in this room, which deals with this subject in particular. What are we talking about? Fundamentally, the word test, we try to qualify that word test, but in my case, I'm going to focus on ascertaining the accuracy and the quality of the forward test. Why am I doing this? Because basically, since the dawn of time, humanity is focused on heroes in religion, heroes in military endeavors and campaigns. And basically, that's stayed the same for all this time. We do have heroes that we look up to. They are heroes that we see in everyday life. And for example, we trust soldiers, we trust police because it's the right thing to do. I think it's we're all cognizant that many of us have got children. We want to know that our kids are going to go to school safely on time, and we're all going to be able to go to have food and eat and dine with friends and peers and colleagues, business. And all that is protected by the envelope of the four-way test, as I'm going to explain now. Why do I say that? Because the beginnings of the four-way test are very, very long-standing. They actually predate many of the references to the 1932 and 1943 Rotarian Society with four-way test. Actually, yeah, it was developed in 1932, the Rotary Club, because it was referring to a beleaguered company and lots of climatic conditions going on. Nobody can deny that. But actually, since then, the application of four-way test has resonated everywhere in various judicial systems. I can name Ghana, which was created as originally the Gold Coast in Africa. It's one of the most progressive African countries in the African continent. And also the Philippines, as recent as 2015, Benigno Aquino III adopted in the judicial system of the Philippines the four-way test. It's fundamentally going through that, and the police, the national police, they understand it. It is basically adopted as recently as 6 years ago. So I wanted to make that point. And so basically, we are invoking the four-way test in everything we do in the protection of our society. If we look at the Constitution of the United States, that's another area of interest. And the first question regarding truth, basically, it's the right to live freely and have fundamental rights of existence. The survivability factor
is there. And again, it's not about worrying about governments and what we call as fake news and the like, which our first speaker, John, was referring to. It's basically fundamental about having the rights of individuals. And we as a group sort of form that and create an umbrella for those rights. And the second, is it fair? Yes, we believe the Sixth Amendment says that we have a right to a free and speedy trial. That is fundamental in fact of everybody, no matter what race, color, or gender. Goodwill and friendship, building friendship, yes, the First Amendment gives you the right to religion, gives you the right to freedom of speech. And yes, the media does try to warp it. Not all cops are bad, some are rotten apples for sure, but fundamentally the vast majority are not. And so that is another fact of the case. And is it beneficial to all? The Second Amendment gives the right to bear arms. That's controversial. But basically, it's to protect our rights as individuals. I think that you cannot underestimate the value of that right, whether it's right or wrong. So potentially there's a fifth, if you like, a fifth tenet question. That is it fun? Well, no, it's not fun. It's basically getting on with life. And we actually, as a group, we always believe it is fun. And Sebastian is one of the great proponents of this, I have to say. He makes it fun, and we're great to have him as one of our leaders.
Because you say also house down. This is 1,810. Yeah, next.
Okay, thank you for that interruption. So if I summarize quickly, it's really not an ideal. It's not something that politically can be influenced. In the words of Atticus Finch in the great movie To Kill a Mockingbird, his final comments were, "It is not an ideal. It is a living and working reality." Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Robert. And now to invite Rotary Ravi to take the floor.
In the Lord of Arabia, you have Lawrence, right, in Iraq, and the way to see the idealistic represent. Unitarians indeed, while chasing the ideal of service, which was talking about is on the Raj, believe that goodwill and friendship are the paths that we take. There are these illusions. Is goodwill in reality mere greed? Utopian ideal of fairness, is it the real critique of flattery masquerading as friendship? Fake all the way. The great Orson Welles said, F is for fake, and made a movie. Michael Douglas said, G is for greed. The Bard, Shakespeare, said, most friendship is fading, most loving is for quality. The rarest quality in the world is genuine friendship. And on the slippery slope of commercial relationships, which are one of the tenets on which Rotary was founded, friendship needs immense maturity, genuine concern for each other. The greatest kindness often masquerades in the short term as the worst cruelty. The impact of proactive and honest support on relationships takes time to evolve, to mature. Openness between people in this age where everything can be verified, validated on all kinds of media, resulting in misunderstanding, trolling. Is this something which Rotarians who are anything but iconoclasts are being capable of genuine friendship development? Does the purpose of being a Rotarian today for many, many new Rotarians even encourage genuine friendships instead of flattery? And speaking of friendship, can we accept new people as they are, setting aside our deep-rooted prejudices, and we all have them? Can we recognize an unfamiliar personality
in all his or her diversified richness and otherness? Can we set aside our overriding self-interest in our relationships with other Rotarians? Are we truly altruistic people without any conditions in relating to our neighbors? Can each one of us answer this question right now in our hearts? Can you? Let us now study briefly the rationale behind friendships in mature people. Three kinds of friendships: utility-based. How do I benefit? I. You are a byproduct. Two, pleasure-based. Based on wit, based on good looks, based on pleasant time spent together. Status. Any one of these things, this is the time around 7 years of man, the friendship is gone. And finally, the most lasting, goodness based, and that takes time. So to make a friend for life, you have to commit to a depth of involvement. A friend is one that knows you as you are, understands what you have been, accepts what you have become, and yet gently allows you to grow and grow and grow. Years of nurturing, code of personal ethics have to match in any long-lasting friendship. Speaking the honest truth and not dishonest, self-serving truths to a friend. The worst feeling in the world is when you know that you have been used and lied to by someone you. One of the most difficult things in the world is the willingness to do it and the ability to accept it when honest creation takes place. Friendship means honestly humiliating your friend sometimes, good for that person. Let's talk about friendship, goodwill, and betrayal. There is no better example for this than the great Macbeth. Macbeth, what did he do? A great noble, an honest man. He betrayed his master, the Thane of Clogher. He betrayed his friends, Duncan, Banquo, and betrayed his own good nature. And then the witches, they betrayed him, his wife, Lady Macbeth, betrayed feminine nature. So if every betrayal starts with trust, then how do we reinforce trust? Let's ask some questions. When trust implied by the four-way test is betrayed by Rotarians, and this toleration is the final brutal realization of the idealistic founding father, and some of us believe in our souls that his ideals can be redeemed, then we have to update this four-way test. Nobody here is saying that the four-way test has to be thrown in the trash can or has to be given up. The four-way test needs to be updated for Rotarians of today, for the values of today, for what works and what does not work today. We are not destroying it, demeaning it, throwing it away, but elevating it. That is all that our chairman is trying to do. Help him in creating a more focused four-way test which addresses the needs of today. Thank you very much.
All right, and with that, we invite the reply speaker for the opposition to close his case for his side.
Okay, so my job now as the reply speaker is bias, just to summarize our arguments. We talked a lot about traditions, and one of the traditions of the debate is, as Mark pointed out, a point of information. So I don't want the proposition to think that we weren't trying to build goodwill by interrupting. Now, it is the proposition's job to prove to you beyond doubt the four-way test should be updated. And that means fundamentally to change the four-way test. The proposition with some wonderful metaphors and some wonderful talks said a lot of things that we actually agree with as a team. And I think mistakes have been made in the past. I think reevaluating the polio drive and looking for where we can build further goodwill are definitely things that we should do. But what I'm hearing there is somebody using the four-way test to do that. They are giving that consideration, using the four-way test to think, well, actually, is this beneficial to all concerned? We listened a lot of the time there about following structures blindly without questioning. And we, as the opposition, would certainly not suggest that we should do that. And in fact, we don't think that the four-way test needs a phase. In fact, we believe very firmly it does not need a phase. We are not arguing, though, that we should spend some time in reflection of that four-way test. But the word test comes through again, test the four-way test, and to look at how we can make it more beneficial. When we saw a lot of the claims that were made, they were claims that actually if we're using the four-way test, then we will not move forward. One of the key things I want to finish with is this notion of division, which was referenced by both sides, this notion of not coming together. And actually, we say that the four-way test is like the chairs that you see before you, and it needs each one of those legs in place, and it needs each one of those legs to work in collaboration with one another in order to get the desired objectives, and in order for us to truly service yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to wrap up the case for the proposition and to wrap up the debate as a whole, we now invite the reply speaker from the proposition.
Wow. Hasn't this been an absolutely fabulous debate? I think one thing should come quite clear, and both sides agree with this, that nobody's talking of let's look at it from a slightly different light, from the point of view of today, the modern thinking, the modern way we look at issues. Let me tell you what sometimes comes across as who we Rotarians are. And if I use the letters Rotarian one at a time, we've been accused, or I've heard this being said, that Rotarians are believed to be R for risk-free, restrictive or rigid, old-fashioned and out of date, or O, T, tangential, A, ambition, and perhaps with some avarice, R for rusty and regressive, I for insensitive, intolerant, A for aggressive, N for non-committal. All Rotarians do not come across in such negative ways, but it awakens us to think and force the proposition to suggest and create a slightly different version of the four-way test. With this in view, we've looked at it and had a discussion on this, and I'd like to open this up to the floor for discussions very soon after this. Instead of, is it the truth? Can we suggest that the test should read, can I be the beacon of unfake truth? Instead of saying, is it fair to all concerned, we propose a change to read, can I be more fair to you before I think of myself? Instead of, will it be beneficial to all concerned, we propose that it could be changed to, can I, in the spirit of truth and fairness, be beneficial to the community? And instead of building goodwill and better friendship, we suggest a rewording to say, can I be trustworthy, can I be a trustworthy and about it and we can have a chat as we go to the floor with each of you. Can I take the opportunity of thanking Perlita, Imam, and Ravi for being on the team and working with us. Thank you very much.
So with that, everyone, we have now come to the end of the formal debate. But before we move on to the floor debate segment, please give our debaters another round of applause. Yes. We'll move on to the floor debate, and then we can have you guys, if you have any points to make or anyone to talk. Okay, so now with that, no, you guys on stage, you guys can just use the mics there if you have something else to add. It's the mic here is for everyone in the audience. So with that, now we move on to the floor debate, and as I mentioned earlier, this is open to everyone joining us tonight, be it virtually or in person. Just a reminder, you have 90 seconds, and I will ring the bell once when you have 30 seconds left, and I'll ring the bell twice when your time is up. To indicate that you would like to speak, if you are here physically, you can just raise your hand and I'll do my best to call on you. If you are joining us virtually, you can just raise your hand using the Zoom function and we'll also call on you. So without further ado, is there anyone who would like to start off the floor debate? Yes, I see a very eager gentleman from table 5. Sir, you have the floor. You can please come forward. 1.5 minutes. Yes.
Why do you want to do this there? Why not here? Because your audience is going to vote.
Up
right?
to you. Up to you.
The audience will vote. I come forward because I personally feel that anything needs to be updated if it is not self-evolving. Let us just take the first line, and that is it the truth? They could have very well used the word, is it the fact? What's the difference between truth and fact? Truth is subjective. Fact is objective. For instance, we believe, our perception was that the earth was flat.
Doing that.
That the earth was round, and which is
Put the paper on the sofa.
truth will keep evolving as and when we find the facts. It was found that the earth was followed by the moon in an eclipse. Later, we knew why it happened. So therefore, the truth changed. Now, if it is self-evolving, then it doesn't need a book. And that is why, probably for 39 years, 39 or years, 89 years, the same COVID test continues. That's all.
Be one of the debaters, Devina first, and then Ravi after that. Yeah, Devina, you have the floor.
I'll shut up. I have a, but I think we have missed not up on the slide. It says the COVID test actually think, say, and do. And I think many of the new Rotarians do not know yet, and I have it, I cannot flash it over there. Rotary's pledge is to can you uphold the truth, act with integrity, build on trust and relationships. That's the first line. The second one is be fair, accountable, and driven by independent judgment in all your dealings. Third one is strive to build goodwill and better friendship and fellowship among your countrymen and among all Rotarians. And the last one is I will act with empathy and promote beneficiaries for the greatest number of people in the spirit of Rotary service. So I think we are completely out of mark when we are just doing a word of that, like Kapil said, and what's flashing there, what's and they say absolutely blind. So that's why what's flashing there is constantly coming up on our eyes and ears. But all these things are all encompassing of things like Kapil said. So I do not think, and it's a thing, that's why it's going on and on for many, many years now, almost. So I would concept is very different from am I driving towards a true, honest, beneficial business. Telling a false information versus driving goodwill and selfish intentions. I mean, that's what I want to say about this.
Right, and Ravi, your turn to have the floor.
You have the Bible and you have the Ten Commandments. If you had the time or the inclination to read the Bible, you don't need the Ten Commandments. Similarly, you have all the stuff which my distinguished colleague on the other side has explained at length, and you have 4 lines. Those 4 lines have to give you the complete picture. Those 4 lines may have given you the complete picture in 1952, but it's certain tweaks have to be done to reflect the way in which times have changed, the way in which people have changed, the way in which intentions have changed, the way in which people approach Rotary, the way in which Rotary approaches the world. There's nothing wrong in adding a few words to further enhance those basic concepts, those basic concepts. So all that is being said here, make those 4 lines more easy, more relevant, and more focused. That's all.
So we still have time for 2 more floors. Is there anyone who joins virtually who would like to? Don't see any hands being raised. In that case, is anyone joining us? Yeah, table 1. Yes, you have the floor.
I have listened to the arguments and I have a few points. I think first things first, when this I call it a constitution in legal terms, and constitutions or the main principles should be as general as possible. So I'm looking at what happened in 1922 to today. Our general principles are changed, or are we still living in the same principles, but application has changed? What I observe is in 1920, this was covering certain group of people, and now it's covering everyone, not even human beings, maybe even animals also included in a certain right. So it may not be necessarily issues, but it is the coverage. And the other point I would see that is in this kind of constitutions, the more specific we are, there will be more need to change all of them. So the principle should be such core that it really needs to be added, and we should keep in consideration that will it be required in the near future to be changed again. So what I see is the concepts are suggested are really core, and does it really make a big difference when they are added? I see the main concepts here are objectivity and the trust. This existing words, does cover them, or if we add them, does it add more value, or does it change the current act of the Rotary? And or this addition should be done in chapters and in the applications. Thank you very much.
Time for one more speaker. So just nice, we have time for one more speaker. We'll let PP Mark wrap up the debate for today.
Well, I think it was a great debate, and I was really surprised that our opponent, the proponents of the proposition, actually came up with an alternative set of forward text. Does anybody remember what it said? Is anybody going to go to the botanical garden and change the plaque to this set? It may have some benefits, but it's really not going to be our tradition. It's not going to be our motto. It's not going to work. So sorry about that. Also, I think they talked a lot about the problems. You know, the world is in trouble, the knowledge base, the IT cannot follow up, and so on. I think all it says is that you need the test to keep evolving. The test is not saying what the truth is, but that you need to test to find the truth. So to me, that is really the fundamental. So anybody that agrees with me, please vote for us. Opposition, thank you very much.
Thank you, TC Mark. And with that, we've come to the end of this evening debate. So what's going to happen now, everyone, is that we're going to take a second vote. So if you can just scan the QR code on your table again, or if you are joining us virtually, you can scan the QR code that is available on the PowerPoint slide, and you can cast a vote. I believe right now you only have two choices. It's either for or against the motion. Sorry? You have to move the slide of oh, it's still the same one. Okay. Okay, here we go. Post page. So maybe what we can do for some suspense is maybe if I can remind everybody what we're voting on, then we can turn on the results. And then after that, I'll hand the time back to President Lewis to come and announce the results. So the motion again that we're voting on is that the four-way test needs to be updated for the 21st century. After you vote on the motion, there will also be a chance to vote for who you think was the best speaker from tonight's debate. And after that, I'll hand the time back to President Lewis to announce the winner for tonight. You guys just sorry?
What is the green? The internet so fast.
Yeah, so agree will be for and then disagree will be agree.
What did you say?
You are disagree. You are disagree.
The best feature right now is another meeting.
Is another link. Okay, I can start it now. Are you ready for the link?
After pushing, you want to vote?
No, we let them vote everything first, then we do all the results.
Okay.
Yeah. So can you flash the best speaker link? Is this the best speaker one? These are now. So now this QR code is to scan for the best speaker for tonight. So you can just scan the QR code on the. This is to vote for who is the best speaker. And then after that, I'll hand the time over to President Lewis to announce the results for all. Team, I think you guys can stay on stage. Stay on stage. So there's a little bit more anticipation. But the bar is in the back, that is true. He will have all the results. Okay, yeah. I'll have the time back to do that. Okay, thanks. Yeah, most welcome.
Yeah. I think one of them is
Don't worry. Something went wrong.
President, you're muted.
It's the speaker that will hear me.
Yeah.
All right, so okay, so as you can see, those who agree is at 18, we have 18 who voted for agree, 17 disagree, 1 undecided. So the winner would be no.
The difference between the first and the second vote. I mean, this is past 4.
Yeah, so correct, right? So the winner would be the proposition. Now we have who is the best speaker? President Mark. It must have been about the high seas and the lights. Congratulations. And then wraps up. And then we'd like to thank our moderator, Walter, for joining us. And also his lovely girlfriend, Tiffany, for joining us. Right, apologies that you were stuck outside for a while. Okay, so it comes to an end of the debate. Please go to your table and debate some more.
What is before one? So it's not the final one, it's like how many people shifted.
So for those who are on Zoom, we do appreciate your attendance and we thank you for joining us during the meeting.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening. Take care.
Can we do it now?
Okay, as we prepare for dinner, I would like to now call upon Subhash, Membership Director Subhash. We are going to do the induction of Charles Cole. Okay, some announcements. Okay, we like to wish those who are celebrating their birthdays, like to thank them if they are here, but most of all, we like to wish them a happy and blessed birthday. Sylvia, Francesco, and Bridget for today. Sean Lee for 28, Sunny Low 29, Ajit Mukul 1st February, Honorary Member Jimmy Shaw for 2nd of February, Honorary Member Adam Moladina for 4th of February, and my gosh, 102nd birthday for Honorary Member Adam Moladina. Congratulations. And then we also have wedding anniversary. Today is Kiki, JP Ong, and Wing Hu. And then on the 28th, Ravi, where are you, Ravi? There's your wife here today. Okay. And then we have Ikan and Sulika. And then Elizabeth, Chi, and John Lau, followed by Akul and Bella Mocha. So, happiest congratulations to all of you for your wedding celebrations. And now, we have a new member to be inducted. May I invite Director for Membership, Subhash, to come forward, please.
Thank you, President Lewis. Tonight, again, I'm honored to induct a very outstanding member. His name is Charles Cole. Can I ask Charles to come here for a minute, please? Thank you, Charles. I must say that Charles is perhaps the fastest member inducted in the club. The day he called me, after that, I don't think any of the meetings he has missed. I don't think he's missed any of the events he has missed. So that's the kind of dedication, that kind of person Rotary needs. And be it cycling, he was there. He was not having cycle, Charles used. So he came early morning. So I give a little background to Charles. Charles comes from a very humble background, as he says, and he did his education in Catholic schools, and he had a lot of values he learned. And in that education, he had got the basic thing what he learned was the empathy. I think that's what is the very, very important thing, and each Rotarian must have. Now, allied, he has been involved in a lot of social activities. The very important thing which I like of him, which he has described himself, when it comes to the service, his words always stand for the lost and the least. I'll repeat again. Always stand for the lost and the least. That's a fantastic thing. That's probably the fantastic way of helping the people and helping the community. Thank you, Charles, for being involved in all this. President Lim. Thank you.
Okay, fellow Rotarians, it is my privilege and pleasure today to welcome into our membership Mr. Charles Simon Hokawa.
We'll eat now.
All right, apologies for that. That must be Charles' supporters. Proposed by membership by Director Subhash himself, the process has been reviewed in accordance with the constitutions and bylaws of the club. However, as you we now proceed to admit you into membership in the Rotary Club of Singapore. All members believe you to be a leader in your field and have qualities which will allow you to carry out the work of a Rotarian. In electing you to membership, we are doing more than taking you into our fellowship. We are making you a trustee with us of Rotary's ideals. Knowing you to be a Rotarian, the world will henceforth judge Rotary by your conduct. Membership in Rotary is an honor and privilege, and every privilege has its corresponding obligations. You have to accept the responsibilities attached to your membership to this club and to obey this club's constitution bylaws. One of the special obligations of membership is regular attendance at our weekly meetings and in our monthly service committee meetings, and also participating in club projects and activities. This is the primary method of fulfilling the principles of service and fellowship, and a way in which you represent your vocation. However, the ideal of Rotary is service. Service Director Sonali, past President J.P. Ong, who is on Zoom this evening, will be your mentor and guide, and will help you assimilate to the service committee. Your classification is automotive, sales, leasing, and repairs. As you represent this vocation, it is your duty to tell us your vocation and to bring about the ideals of Rotary to your business and profession. And by now, by the power vested in me as President of the Rotary Club of Singapore, I declare you to be an active member of this club. I'm pleased to present you with the Rotary emblem and a packet of Rotary literature. I especially commend to your attention the object of Rotary and the four-way test which form the criteria for Rotarians in their daily lives. Fellow Rotarians, I'm happy to present to you Rotarian Kawa, our newest member. Let us all rise and welcome him to the oldest Rotary Club. I would now like to invite Kawa to just say a few words. So I know you may have a lot of things to say, but short of time tonight. All are hungry. Okay, please say a few words and let us hear from you.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I'm very honored and pleased that I've been inducted to this prestigious club, Rotary Club. And the very important person that I will thank is Mr. Subhash, which actually introduced me to this special club. And thank you very much, Subhash. And going forward, I would like to know each and every one of you, all right? And I'll try my best to contribute to this club with my experience and also my passion in helping the poor, the unfortunate, and the needy. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And we also have some very, very fantastic announcement this evening. It's not part of the agenda, but then we received great news this evening. Some of you already know about it, but I'll just repeat it. Okay, 3 of our past presidents have been, nominated to become the advisor to President Halima Yaakob for, I think, youth service related matters in the youth court. Let me just read it. It's in the ISC chat group. Okay, here we are. They will become the panel of advisors to inform and advise the youth court on matters relating to children and young persons. 8 new advisors have been appointed to join 23 existing advisors. And the 3 advisors that are newly appointed that are from our club will be PP Mansour, PP Philip Leong, and PP Dr. Shahul. So heartiest congratulations to all. This again is testament to what Rotarians are doing. So the 4-way test, they have applied to themselves and applied to what they do on a daily basis, and they have been recognized as such. So do we still need to change it? Debate about it, yeah. All right. So next week, meeting will be cancelled in view of Chinese New Year, and we'll resume again physically on the following week. Okay, and that leaves me with the greatest pleasure of thanking all who have joined us from using Zoom. Okay, you are not here this evening, maybe because you did not book early, but be assured that we will continue with this physical meeting, and we will want to see all of you at some time. So meeting is closed. I thank all of you once again for those who are here for this. So before you take your food, I think it's necessary that I call upon Dr. Chan. I would like to thank Dr. Chan for being the camera person this evening. It has turned out very well. And also, Bernie, Linda,